Okay, you're looking at ice maker from a GE fridge, and what I'm finding with this ice maker is that when I attempt to, or when it attempts to basically retrieve the ice from the mold, the motor won't turn. It gets stuck, and you just hear it it'll constantly grind away trying to push the ice out of the mold. But the problem is it's not heating up. So the ice is basically frozen in the mold and the motor gets stuck. So, and it's supposed to basically just do this. It'll move around like this in a circular motion. It'll get up to this point. It'll pull the ice up and around. It'll send it out this way. And then once the ice drops on the other side, it comes around again on the second turn. And it gets to about this point here. Turn around here. And the water will then, there's a switch inside the side here. On the side of the unit in here, which I'll show you shortly. When that switch gets kicked on, and it basically turns on the water. Water turns on for a certain amount of seconds, which you can control with, there's a screw on this side, right there. And when you do that, then that basically determines how much time that the water turns on for, so you don't overfill your reservoir here. And then basically it'll get up to this point, and it'll stop, and it'll freeze. And then when it gets up to temperature, around, I think -8 Celsius, -10, somewhere in there, when basically the sensor is a thermostat in here that's attached right to the metal. When it senses that it's that temperature, then it'll basically heat the portion up. You'll see underneath it's got a thing here, the element that'll heat up, and then it'll release the ice, which takes about 4 minutes or so. Now, what I did to test this, I was trying this, and I realized that okay, it wasn't producing ice. But I thought what I can do is I can bypass the thermostat in here. By bypassing it, I can at least get it to release the ice. So I installed a little switch on this side, just temporarily, that I can turn on and off. So it's a push button switch. It just closes. Basically, this is where the two contacts for the thermostat, which I have. Let's put that aside. Here's what the thermostat looks like for this unit. So it's basically a bimetal thermostat. It switches based on temperature, so it'll automatically switch. It's normally an open circuit. So if I measure this right now between these two terminals, because it's room temperature, this is an open circuit. So what'll happen is when it gets to the right temperature, around -12, this will basically become a short circuit. Basically the equivalent of doing this, attaching it, which is exactly what I'm doing with the switch over here. So that allows me to basically turn this on. So what would happen is I would just listen. When I heard that this thing was grinding away, I would just push the button, and it literally takes up pretty much exactly 4 minutes for it to heat this element up, and then for the ice to pop out. And then when I do that afterwards, I would just shut it off, and then I at least got my ice temporarily while I waited for a new thermostat part to come in, which is what this is. So today I'm going to open this up and replace the thermostat and show you how to do that. And for reference, that's the thermostat. That's the ice maker detail there. This thermostat has its own number, so that's the number here is for the entire assembly for the ice maker. So you can replace this whole assembly if you want. It would basically do the same thing, I'm sure. However, thermostat part can be bought separately. I looked on eBay and a few other places. I was able to find it for about $20. So it should be cheaper, to be honest. But I found it difficult to source this exact type of bimetal. It's called a snap disc thermostat. It's basically got two metals in there that basically will contract and expand with temperature. But yeah, I couldn't find the exact specs that I was looking for, so I just decided to bite the bullet and spend the $20 versus say 10, which I'm sure I could get it for even less, maybe even 5 somewhere else. But it's just easier so I can get the exact one. Anyway, that's that, and we'll go into taking it apart. And again, on the front here, this little adjustment here, that's for basically the time of the water dispensing. So that's all that's used for. You got your on-off here, which basically you'll hear a click in there. That's a switch, so that's basically, this is doing the same thing. So it just allows, this is for when your ice maker is full, and it's basically to prevent the ice eventually will push this in, so it'll stop it from making ice, which is the same as doing that, so that you're not overfilling your ice bin in your freezer if you're not using the ice that quickly. But being that it's summer, I wanted to get this working. All right, so the first step is there's a little plastic thing here, which I removed already. It just lifts up. You got to basically pry it and lift it up. Kind of pops up. It's kind of annoying, but it comes out. And then just take your screwdriver and just a Phillips head in here, which is nice. So it's pretty easy to pull off. So you do that and then just lift it off. And there you go. And on the back side here, you'll see 3 screws holding this. So you want to take off, that's the motor here that spins the unit when it's dispensing the ice. Now just unscrew these 3 screws. You can again disregard this because that's my homemade hack to test the ice maker. I wanted to test it to make sure that it's just the thermostat that's the problem. So when I realized that's the only problem it was, I figured, well, I don't need to spend money and buy the whole thing. I can just do this. And I had the spare parts for that switch handy. So it was easy enough for me to just troubleshoot that way. Also, for your reference, there is on the back of this, it's really hard to see because it's white on white, but there's actually a diagram of the electrical circuit that's in here. But it's, again, it's really hard to read because it's at a, you got to get it just the right angle and you can kind of read it. All right, pop this off. I can approach this. I got that all off. It kind of sticks in the middle a little bit. There we go. Because it's the switches on the other side. So on the bottom here, you'll see you've got 3 switches. This is your water switch. This is what they call the hold switch. And this is what they call the feeler arm switch, because this is the arm here on the side that I'm moving. And that moves this thing, so that attaches. So that's what that switch is for. This is for the rotation of the arm. So it goes all the way around. And if you look carefully, there's little indentations here, and another one on the lower side over here, which correspond to the switches here. This one and the lower switch of the water here. So that's what those little indentations are. So pretty easy to test the switches. That's really simple. You can just take an ohm meter. I'll show you that now. Okay, as you can see, I've got it connected to the basically both multimeter leads connected to each side. So I'm connected on the white and the black wire right now. And when I push the switch, this should go open circuit, and it does. So short, open. And if you want to check to make sure the other one's actually connecting, you can just put it on the other side and make sure that when you push it, it actually goes to 0, and it does. So this is telling me the switch is good. So you can test each switch individually like that. Make sure that they're working correctly. You can do it. You can just do it quickly on this one. Sometimes you may have to disconnect the wire depending on how the circuit is in this one. Make sure that it'll read correctly, because as you can see here, you get different readings. So depending on how you're doing it. So if you want to just make sure you disconnect and reconnect the exact same spot. So take this off. It's kind of hard to. Pretty stiff. There we go. There's one. There we go. Just make sure you remember where they go. So there's that. So you can see that. And if I push the switch, it goes open circuit. And then do the same thing on the other side. Make sure that it actually connects when I push it. And it does, 0 ohms. So that's how you check your switches. So you can verify your switches are good. You can before you spend any money in a brand new unit, and these switches are pretty simple. Just unscrew them here and replace it with a new one. So that's how you can verify that. The motor, I mean, I know mine spins, so I don't need to verify that. I'm sure that's something that's easy to check as well. And then now what we can do is what I want to do is replace a thermostat, and I can show you where that is. So if you look in here, so this is actually where the thermostat is encased in here. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's a round little device there, and it's these 2 wires, the red and the black ones. Sorry, orange and the black. So we need to pull it out of the housing, but it doesn't pull out from this direction. It's got to go out. Basically, I got to disconnect the housing to make this work. So there's also another piece in here, just so you know, in case it looks like you don't have any power to your unit. This over here, under here, I don't know if you can see that. Get a flashlight in there. That is basically it's a thermal fuse. So if for some reason the unit got too hot that would blow, and it would prevent any current, any voltage circulating into the unit, even getting to the motor. So there's no way it would even spin at all. So that might be, if you're not getting any motor action or anything coming on, that would be the first thing to check, is check that fuse. And just make sure that's basically a short. So when you check the two leads, it should be basically a short circuit between the two. Your power comes in on these two, you can see it here, the two main black wires, so these 2 points. So that's your power. And then again, this is a homemade wire switch, so you can ignore that. That's on my side that I just used to bypass the thermostat. So in order for us to take this apart, it looks like I need to take off a few things in order to, basically I need it to go the other way. I need to push all this stuff out this direction. So that's what we'll do. Okay, the first thing to do is to remove this paddle. So then you can, you need to take off an inside part. So we'll take that part off first. So as you pull this off, you'll see there's a spring here. So you want to make sure you get that in place afterwards as well. So that gives it the spring action. So see that little hole there? It's got to go, that spring has got to go in that hole. So make sure when you install it, you put it in there. All right, so pull that off. Put this off to the side. And then this part can be then part of this paddle. So I moved this so that it's in this place, because so you can just see where it goes. So there. So now we got it there. You pull these two screws off and you can attach this. I'm trying to get it, there's a screw underneath actually that I'm trying to get at, so that's what I'm taking that off. So pull these two off. And I'll pull those two out of the way. So it's a little bit of disassembly to get at the part you want to get at. I don't know why they didn't make this a little bit more friendly, but I guess they want you to replace the whole unit, is my guess. So they don't really want it that serviceable. There you go, we pull that off and take this part out. So it just pulls out. So I always like to keep parts kind of together as I take them off so that it's easier. So now I can get at this screw, which is at the bottom here, which is what I wanted to get at. And that will take off on the outside here, that takes off this front piece. So let's do that. There's not a lot of screws holding this together, but just enough where it can be a little annoying. So I believe there's two. There's this one and the one on the other side. And I need to get at to release, so this can get the heater core element out of the way to get at the thermostat. And see, it's quite a long screw. So, all right, pull that off to the side. And if you see in the front here, this piece now, you can see it's actually separating from the housing, the gap. So basically the same thing on the other side. I need to release that one. So let's do that. So on the back here, that's probably the screw right here holding the two ground wires. I'm not sure you can see that at all. This one. So I'll pull that off. Looks like it's the same length screw. So just make sure you put all this stuff back together in the same order after you get it all apart. All right. So I'll pull that screw out of the way. All right. There's the screw there. It's got a little washer on it, and again, it attaches those two ground clips. So put that off to the side. Just a note, it's a little bit different head on this. Is the one from the right, and the one I just talked about from the left, so a smaller one. All right, so now you got that off, and that should now allow the whole thing to come out, I would think. Okay, let's see. Look around the other side here. It looks like it's separating it. Yep, it does, and I can see, if you look down in there, you can actually see the thermostat. So something's holding it in place here. Oh, there it goes. That's this piece. All right. I think it's this. Oh, that's what it is. It's the wire in the back. So if you look in the back, I'm just going to pull this water thing off. You see that? Just push push that down in the center, pull that off, get it out of the way. Now pull this off on the side, and that'll allow you to pull the whole heater thing away. And there we go. And there's the thermostat. So would have been a lot easier if you could get at that from the other side. Now there's thermal paste on there, so you want to utilize the same type of thermal paste to put this thing back together. If you don't have it, it can be purchased separately. Mine didn't come with that, but I have some thermal paste around. So. Also, just a note, this is the thermal fuse up here. You see that? It's probably better to pull that out and put that back in later so that when you're assembling this, you're not potentially damaging this part. So I would feed that back through here, like I'm doing here. And there's a little clip on the other side you can pull out, and so that you can basically make that sure that it's easier to install later. All right, so I'm just going to push this from the other side. I've already undone the electrical connections. You can see I'm just pushing on the thing. Oh, it actually seems to be stuck in there a little bit. I think there's a retention. There's a retention clip. It looks like I got to pull out first. So let's do that. Okay, just to show you what I did here, just to loosen this off. So this plastic clips here hold it in place. So I just basically get in here and push in one direction, and try and lift this off like that. Don't try to bend the plastic clips. I don't think that'll work so well. Just try and bend the metal. All right, so now it comes out, and now you should be able to easily grab this. There we go. And that's the thermostat with the retaining ring. You can see on the back here. Yeah, just turn the retaining ring and you can get it to pop off here. There we go. So it goes on like this. There's line it up, and you can turn it. So that's how that goes on. Keep that aside. We use that for putting on the other one. And I'm going to replace this with the new one. And just to show the comparison again, these are the two. It's the original one and the new one. One's just got wires on it, that's all. So, but they seem to have similar markings, so I believe it's the correct one. All right, as I said earlier, I'm going to remove this little clip here so I can remove this thermal fuse, basically, just so it's easier to install later. So this is just a clip. Pull the clip out of there, and then that way you can make sure that this isn't going to get squished when you install everything. So kind of handy if you have a pair of tweezers. Pull some stuff out of here. Get it out of the way. There we go. Just so it's out of the way when you're reinstalling. All right, got that out of the way. Put the clip off to the side. So I remember to put that in later. And now let's get the thermostat in there. So, all right, we've got this with our thermostat basically, and we've got the plate. So what you want to do is you're going to hold it like this. Make sure the little teeth are facing the same direction as the leads, and this basically rotate this, get it on there. So it's, I'm going to squeeze those leads together a little bit and get it aligned, and then just push it on there, and that way it's kind of like that. So you can see that, and basically that's how you want to install it. And it's going to go in like this over top. The idea is it can't push out the other direction, right? So that's what that's got the flange for, because it's going to be pushed against the metal. So just put that down like there, and that's pretty much it. Nothing really special than that. You got it on there, and then now we can apply the thermal stuff to the front here. So I'm going to take my thermal compound, and I'm going to squish a bit on there. And it's probably better to be a little more liberal with this versus trying to be too stingy, because you want to make sure you get good contact with the metal on the other side. So a little extra on there. That looks pretty good, I think. you go. And that's going to interface with this side, which I cleaned up already from the older stuff. Let's see it on this side, pretty clean. So, and now that can basically push together. So that's basically what we're going to do. We're going to line that back up and push it back together. So do that. I'm just going to push it in first, make sure it lines up. This, by the way, is there's a D shape to this, so it's keyed. So it's going to have to fit into the same spot. So actually need to look and just have a look. Looks like it's pointed. I'm going to point it straight up. Yep, straight up. So do like that. And that should get it in there. There we go. And then you push it straight in. I'm going to pull it out just quickly just to take a look how it mated on the front. Yeah, it looks like a good mating connection. So the same thing. Put this back in the vertical position. All right. So now it's held there like that. And now I can put the screws in from the other side. So I won't bore you with the details on that. I'll put this on a little faster for assembly. Okay, just got this installed, the flapper back in there, make sure it's spring loaded, and I'm just checking to make sure that when I rotate, that it snaps back in place. Let's just make sure that it's assembled right. I've got the thermal fuse in there, that's installed, the clips on there. I've installed these two screws on the other side that's underneath there, you can't see it, and there you see the thermostat's in there. So now all I need to do is wire it up and reclose it. So we'll do that. Leaving this on here for the moment, just as a backup, but normally you wouldn't have this on here. So those white wires wouldn't exist for you. So just the orange wire and the black wire. And now we can just assemble this back up top. And again, you just tuck the wires in like this, tuck these around, just like that. And then you can flip this over top and take some alignment. I suggest make sure that's on the outside, just so you have a little more room. It doesn't hit the switch. And then just basically, you got to get it just right. Push a little, and there's a little spring there. And then push that in place, like that. And then install the 3 screws that hold it down. This one. All we have to do now is throw the cover on. So, and a couple plastic pieces that attach. So let's go ahead and do that. So this cover just goes in, there's a tab. You gotta line up, which is on the bottom here. And then this, I have a little extra thing here, which I just have to make sure I put on my unit, but that's supposed to be on yours. And then just this last screw in. Okay, and that's installed, and then we go on the other side here, and we take this piece here, just snap that in place, and there's a little tab here that also snaps in place like that, and that's pretty much ready to go. Okay, we're ready to install in the freezer section. So this is the motor section that turns for the dispensing the ice. It's got the plug in there. So you take your unit and you plug it in there. Keep in mind, make sure this is in the upright position, because if you put it in at where it's like down here, you might end up pushing it in right where the water turns on, and you might not be ready for that yet. So you want to make sure this is lined up. So make sure this in the top of the fridge lines up. So put it over here. Make sure it's not like this, but underneath, so it catches the water, the pipe at the top here. And then I just snug mine in place for now. As I said, this wire I'm just using as a spare. You won't have that in your unit. And then take this and plug it in. And you should start to hear the motor a little bit. You can hear it turning there. Put it in there, you can take a look. and you'll slowly start to hear it clicking there. It's as it turns this motor. So I won't bore you, but we'll watch it turn, and then you'll watch the water fill up. Quarter rotation, now it's going down into the bin to rotate around 180 degrees. And when it comes up on the other side, the water will kick on. Kick on shortly here. There it goes. Yep, got it set for about 7 or 8 seconds. That's what that control there is for. There we go, it's filled up. Now we just have to wait. Now you'll see it gets to the horizontal position and it stops. The motor stops turning it. So now that's the hold position. So basically it's going to sit there until this whole assembly, based on the thermostat, gets down to about -8, -10. So we'll have to wait for that. But all right, the video, you can see the ice starting to come up there at the back. Looks like the thermostat is working. And you can hear the motor there. It's turning slowly and bringing the ice up into rotation there to fall into the ice bin down below. So it seems to be doing the job. So I would say the thermostat is resulted in a fix for this ice maker. There we go. The water should kick on here in a few seconds. There we go, stopped. And the motor's just clicking into gear to get into the hold position. There we go. Horizontal with the bar, and it's will hold and stay there for the next ice cycle. So I'd say this repair is good. Alright, it's been more than 24 hours, and it looks like we've got lots of ice now. It looks like it's actually still working as after the repair. Alright, decided to wire in that switch permanently just as a bypass. So I just drilled a little hole in the plastic there and then wired it up so that basically that can be used in the future. If the thermostat ever goes out, I can just push this button and that'll turn on the heater element underneath here and force the ice out. So just a backup. Here's what that looks like on the inside. There's the switch mounted, the 2 wires, and I just wrapped them around here to keep it out of the way of everything, and then to the thermostat. So 1 on each lead of the thermostat. So, and that way it bypasses it. Push the switch, it just shorts that connection, which is exactly what happens when the thermostat actually closes at low temperature. Alright, reassemble this and throw back in the fridge. Okay, got this mounted in here. I decided to make this a permanent addition, so that's why it's all in there, rather than hanging loose. And it's basically a thermostat bypass switch, so if this heater for some reason doesn't turn on because the thermostat fails inside, I can just hit this and that will allow the ice to come out. So just a bypass, temporary, when needed. Alright, so we'll plug this in. Okay, there we go. You can hear the thing whirling away, the clicking of the motor. You can see this this is starting to spin around counterclockwise. In here, a couple seconds. There it goes, filled up, and there we go. So now you see this thing's flicked out too when it did that, so it turns everything on. Now just throw the ice bucket in and we're ready to go. Alright, ice bucket installed, and now I'm going to throw the top cover on too. I got the top rack in there, and as you can see the button's accessible through that little cutout in the plastic, so I can reach it if necessary in the future without even pulling the tray out. So. Ice maker is done and repaired.